Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Adam here from Menta Watches with another edition of new old stock inventory. We're going to go through some watches that just hit the website. I hate to say it, but this week it is, unlike the last time we did this, a little Rolex heavy, not a great mix of different brands. We are diving deep into some vintage Rolex territory, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. We have two GMTs that just hit the site. I'm not going to say it again, but GMT is my, well, I guess I am saying it again. GMT is my favorite sports Rolex, so I always love having them. These happen to be the same reference GMT, but they are very different. They are both reference 16750s. The 16750 was the transitional model following the reference 165. It came with an upgraded movement, a little bit beefier case. It had a quick set function, so it went from the caliber 1570 to the 3075, giving the wearer the quick set ability through the crown to change the date, unlike the earlier versions where you just had to wind the hands all the way around the dial past 12 to set the date. These are both 16750s, but they are fitted with different dials. The 16750 went through two different generations of dials. It started same as the 1675 with a matte dial in the earliest iterations in the late 70s, early 80s. And as Rolex evolved and pushed forward into the mid 80s, they swapped over to the gloss style. So let's start with the earlier version. This is, like I said, a matte dial. The earliest matte dials also shared similar bezel characteristics as the latest generations of the 1675, so like the Mark IV, Mark V, 5 million serial watches with these red back inserts. The way you know that they are the correct insert is you pop off that bezel and you see on the back it's either going to be red or blue. The original ones were red. Blues were used in later generation and as service parts. This one has its original red back insert and it has a really cool fade to it, especially at the top of the blue. I'd seen a lot of people nickname these the faded blue jeans appearance, and I really like that nickname because it kind of looks like a faded blue jeans when you look at it, and it's a perfect cool watch to style with a pair of faded blue jeans. Anyways, a really strong example with a really nice case, perfect dial, nice creamy lume. But for me and my money, even though I generally tend to like matte dials more, I absolutely adore this gloss dial. We just got it fresh out of Mexico. It has an all black insert, which Rolex started working into their lineup in the mid to late 70s. You saw them on late generation 1675s and obviously carried through to the 16750. This is a gloss style version, so it has markers with white gold surrounds. This one has aged to a beautiful pumpkin patina, a little bit lighter in the hands, which is original. Sometimes you'll see non-perfectly matching hands, and that is a lot of times, or most of the times, original, because Rolex, as the lore goes, use different lume manufacturers for the dial and hands on a certain generation of watches. So you'll see it on a lot on Explorer 2s and a few other different Sapphire models as well. It's a very common thing. This one also has its original Jubilee bracelet with correct 50 end pieces and 550 end links, something you don't really see very often. A lot of times they're replaced, but this is the original one. But overall, I just really love the aesthetic of this. I'm a sucker for like deep, warm, rich patina. Some people like it a little creamier and white. I personally love when it gets this nice like orange, dark yellow color, and this one certainly has it. We have a lot of day dates that actually hit the site. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 that just hit the website. Let's start with a day date and a non-day date. They're kind of brother-sister. We have a reference 18038 day date. It has a factory black diamond marker dial. And we also have a reference 16018 date just. So sapphire quick set date just that followed the 1601/8. So gold date just plastic crystal. Also with the same black diamond marker dial. So they're kind of brother and sister. The date just has its original strap and buckle. Condition is absolutely mint and sharp. Really stunning watch if you want that more subtle date just and don't really care about having the day and date function. And likewise, this 18038, we bought this watch a few years ago and just bought it back from a client. I walked into the shop. I remember the day. The condition, same, is absolutely stunning. I hesitate to call it like new old stock, but it's pretty close. Unpolished case, full case back sticker on the back. And the cool thing about this one, I remember when it came to the shop, is that it came out of South America, Paraguay, if memory serves, and it has its original leather-bound box, original leather-bound notebook, which usually you see the space for it in these outer boxes, but people steal them. It's kind of falling apart a little bit. Actually, no, it's pretty good condition. The outer box is falling apart. Never written in, so Rolex used to give out these cool leather-bound books to like take notes in. Most of the times people take them and don't offer them in the set. I've seen these boxes a lot where it's just the actual leather-bound box sitting lower in the outer green box because somebody took the notebook. But anyways, it comes with both, and it also comes with its original Rolex Oyster booklet, original date booklet with the date of sale in San Cristobal on May 27th, 1978. And it also has some hang tags in here. It doesn't have the original warranty, but it does have the original receipt dating to 1978, and whatever currency it was in, it sold for $18,740. Obviously not dollars, definitely a different currency, because I think in 1978 these watches in solid gold were a few grand, nothing crazy as compared to the retail prices on their watches today. Anyways, cool little set or quasi set here, but the watch itself is honestly one of the nicest dates you could find condition-wise. Absolutely stunning. All right, let's hop over to a couple non-Rolex watches just to mix it up. We have 3 non-Rolex watches that hit the site. We have a Movado chronograph, a Piaget watch, and an Audemars Piguet. Let's start with the Movado because I am a massive fan of vintage Movado. It pains me to see the newer watches because we know how good the vintage stuff was. Back in the day, we're talking like early days of vintage watch collecting, where late 90s, early 2000s, or mid 90s, as it's been told to me because I wasn't a dealer back then. Vintage Movado, vintage Cartier, vintage Bubblebacks, those were the super collectible watches. Those are the watches that brought a lot of money, and obviously, of course, Patek and stuff like that. Rolex was not in that category. Rolex was very cheap back in the day, but you had to spend a lot of money to get a really good vintage chronograph such as this. The market, obviously, for many years went away from caring about vintage Movado, and now it's back with a fervor. It has been for quite a few years now because these watches for me are very special, and obviously the general public agrees. This one is an M95 chronograph in solid 14 karat yellow gold with an FB, which stands for Francois Bourgel. He was a legendary case maker, owns several patents, helped develop waterproof cases. He allegedly made like the Rolex Oyster case, although it's not completely confirmed because Rolex won't give us the information. Made cases for Longines, IWC, etc. But anyways, this is a 35mm chronograph, waterproof screwback case. I love the M95s because the chronograph starts at the bottom pusher and not the top. This one also happens to have applied gold Breguet numerals. It is a very rare variant. These watches just wear so well at 35mm, and they're absolutely truly rare. You see so many refinished dials or just ones that were not preserved well because for the longest time they weren't very collectible, so they weren't very well taken care of. It is really hard to find nice ones, and usually when they do come up for sale, they are snatched up very quickly. We don't get as many as we'd like in the shop anymore just because most collectors hold on to them, and we finally have a collector who gave us a few to sell for him, and here is the first one being listed on the website. Probably my favorite of all the ones he sent to us. I'm a sucker for Breguet numerals. I've always loved that style. Let's talk about the Piaget really quick. We have this listed as an Altiplano, but I think the Altiplano line started in the early 2000s. This watch is from the 70s, 80s, but it's clearly the inspiration for the Altiplano line. It is a reference 9200 in white gold. It has a manual wind caliber 9P movement. It was their like ultra thin movement at the time. I think even might have been the thinnest movement at the time. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyways, these are stunning watches. I really love how Piaget experimented with a lot of different styles and stones and colors when a lot of other brands were kind of keeping it simple and making sure that their watches had mainstream appeal. This watch was produced in 18 karat white gold with a lapis lazuli bezel and dial. I love the bezel too. If you see, there's little cuts of squares of the lapis placed all around the bezel. It's truly an interesting watch on an integrated bracelet, at least something different that you could wear and something that you don't really see a lot, especially from other brands. Piaget really was doing it great back then. It's so great to see a resurgence and interest in these watches in the status quo right now. Their vintage stuff has been quite collectible as of late, and there's been a lot of interest in their newer watches as well. Really happy to see it. Let's step back over to Rolex for a second before we talk about the lonely AP on the table. Like I said, we have a lot of day dates for sale, so let's just go through the rest of the day dates really quick. The first one is an early reference 1803 from the early 60s in yellow gold. This one with a white Buckley-Dial. You've probably heard us talk about Buckley-Dials in the past. They are so called after the famous watch dealer slash TikToker slash general sensation John Buckley. He was a big fan of these dials, which are are painted Roman numerals on a date dial, and he called it the Buckley-Dial several years ago. We're talking probably over a decade ago, and the nickname stuck, and so now painted Roman numerals on a date dial are referred to as Buckley-Dials. It absolutely adds a very cool look, and these dials do carry a little bit of a premium because they are a little bit more special and unique than a regular just plain white dial with normal numerals. We have as well two very special, it's hard to undersell it, dates that just hit the website. One that we just took back in trade from a client that we sourced with our good friend Kevin Odell last year. It is an 1803 Stella dial. So it is the earliest generation of Stella dials. Stella dials are those colorful lacquered dials. As the story goes, and obviously again, a lot of stuff with Rolex we can't really confirm because they don't give us a lot of information, but as the story goes, in the 60s and 70s, Rolex began to produce these colorful lacquer dials, allegedly for sale in the Middle East and Asia to try to get some more interest out of those areas of the world in their watches and kind of make things a little bit more playful as opposed to just their typical tool watches. The 1803 came in a variety of colors. They made Stella dials in both yellow gold and white metal cases. This one is a burgundy color, so-called the Oxblood dial. It is probably the most common of the Stella dials, to be honest, but this one happens to be in spectacular condition. With Stella dials, because they are lacquer dials and because they were fragile as produced, you always have to check to make sure there are no cracks or hairlines in the actual lacquer of the watch. This one has absolutely no flaws, unpolished case, perfect bracelet, perfect lume, perfect everything. It was such a find by Kevin last year. We were so excited to buy it together, and I'm excited to have it back in the shop on trade. And we have as well a watch that, when I got the call for this watch about a month ago, I was like very, very excited. It was actually local to us in Aventura, Florida, which is about 35 minutes north of where our office is located here in Miami. I've never had one of these watches before personally. I've owned a lot of the later versions of this watch. We've never had one of these in the over 10 years we've been doing this. This is also a reference 1803 with a wood dial. The wood dials in the reference 1803s were made with Sequoia wood and not applied with a coat of lacquer like you commonly see on the 18038 and 18238 wood dials, which were made with birch or burl wood, which they give it that shiny appearance. These Sequoia dials literally look like a raw piece of wood. It is such a unique appearance. Like, you literally are looking at like a tree, whereas versus the later generations of Rolex's wood dials, they have that lacquer, they have that shiny appearance, so you can see it's like more of like a treated appearance, whereas this is literally just so raw and awesome. It kind of just, it's like you're looking at nature. This one also happens to have, which is another reason I was excited to get it, its original box and papers, original certificate. I believe it was sold in the 70s, 1974 in Andorra, of all places, which I believe is a coast off of Spain. Guys, is that right? We don't know. Anyways, geography not the strongest topic here, but let us know where Andorra is in the comments, or we'll just Google it after we're done recording. But anyways, sold originally in Andorra in 1974. Fantastic watch, perfect dial, no cracks in the wood grain, no lume loss whatsoever, which is crazy to see. Just such an awesome, awesome piece. We're so excited to finally have one in the shop. They're so hard to find, especially in this condition and especially full set. Okay, last Rolex watch before we move over to our final watch, which is the AP. We have another 1680 Red Submariner in the shop. So the earliest version of the 1680 in stainless steel, with Submariner being in red. There were 6 generations of dials on the 1680 Red. The first 3 were so-called meters first because the depth rating starts with meters first equaling feet. And then the last 3 generations of the dials, marks 4 through 6, changed from feet first to equals meter. This is a Mark IV feet first dial. The way you know that this is a Mark IV versus a Mark V, because those are the two that are most closely similar in dial appearance, is if you loop the Submariner in red, you will see on the Mark IVs a small layer on the outsides of the letters of white around the print, whereas the Mark Vs are just strictly printed clearly in red. That's the easiest way to tell the difference. But besides all of that, this happens to be one of the most fantastic examples that we have had in quite quite some time. It has a crazy sharp, unpolished case with these beautiful, beautiful bevels. It has a perfect dial, perfect handset, no marks, no nothing, no scratches, beautiful yellow patina, really nice bracelet with commensurate wear for the age, but honestly, this is one of the most well-preserved examples we've had in quite some time from the early 70s. Moving along to our final watch, it is a doozy. We have talked a lot about AP Royal Oak Perpetual Jumbos in our videos. You guys know how much of a fan I am of these watches, regardless of the market's going up and down and up and down. The market is very healthy for these. Again, we cannot keep them in stock, but this is the only time. We've had this reference several times in the shop in steel and gold. It is a reference 25654 ST, so second generation of the Royal Oak Perpetual, the first reference being the 25554, but this one is very special because it was fit with a black lacquer dial. I can't recall seeing this dial fit in any other watch. I can't call it unique or a one-off because I don't know and don't have the information. I could just say that I personally know of no other examples. It has also been confirmed by AP in a certificate of authenticity that they prepared when they had the watch in their shop in Geneva in 2020, specifically mentioning the black lacquer dial. Honestly, I adore this watch because when you look at it and you start looking at the details, it is very reminiscent of a gilt dial from the 1960s. Obviously, AP in 1994 is not producing a gilt dial, and this is print on top of the black lacquer dial. But when you really look at it, it gives you that gilt dial 1960s feeling like you see in a lot of special watches from Rolex, Patek, etc. Honestly, it's just so stunning. Ordinarily, a black dial wouldn't get me that excited, but due to the rarity and the overall aesthetic of this watch, when you're looking at it, it really is a special piece. Also happens to be in fantastic condition with a really strong case, perfect bracelet, perfect dial, really fantastic watch. I had to really beg the collector and owner of this watch to sell it to us and get it out of his collection. We dangled a little fruit in front of him for something else that he wanted, and we're able to pry it away. Really special piece. I can't overstate it enough. But yeah, that's about it for the new watches that hit the site. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Let us know in the comments what your favorite of the new additions are. If you have any questions or interest in any of these pieces, you can feel free to reach out via the website, via Instagram, via YouTube, whatever your preferred method of communication is. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.